We had you there for a second, didn't we? You guys thought there was a blank screen. We forgot about this. Absolutely not. We're so stoked to be here today. So just as Jenna sets up the our screen share, I want to give a quick shout out to Ashoka for arranging like another amazing, inspiring week of learning, of unlearning, and sharing, and being able to connect us from across the globe. So as Jen sets up the share, just want to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending where you're actually coming from in the world and where you're joining with us today. And welcome to today's session on the intersection of impact. And so today we'd actually like to start off our session with the Georgian College land acknowledgement. So Georgian College acknowledges that all campuses are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Odawa, Ojibwe, Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. Georgian College is dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people.
And I personally am situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee and Mississauga territories.
One of the things that Jen and I really wanted to do is just also add our personal piece. So for me, I want to share a little bit that the land acknowledgement serves as this wonderful moment to actually reflect on my personal relationship to the land I stand on. The land I'm currently on is near Orillia, Ontario, in central Ontario, and it's the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee people who stewarded the land I'm blessed to use now to ground myself and to feed myself. But with those gifts also comes a personal responsibility, both to honoring those who stewarded the land before me and to take accountability for the land's continued stewardship in the future. And so we encourage you as well to potentially explore the land that you're on. And we'll put into the chat right now a link of a great website that you can actually put in your own address to find out what lands you're on and what are some of the treaties that actually have the history. And with that, we'll pass back to my amazing colleague, Jenna, for some formal introductions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenna Stevanato. I am the project coordinator for the Social Enterprise Network of Central Ontario, or CENCO, which is an initiative of the Centre for Changemaking and Social Innovation at Georgian College. Georgian College is in Ontario, Canada, just north of Toronto. We have 7 campus locations across Central Ontario, and we are the first and only Changemaker College in Canada, which is really cool. And we received the official designation, I think, in the spring of 2018. I also work part-time with a local affordable housing charity here in Barrie called Redwood Park Communities as their social enterprise and project advisor. And I completed my Bachelor of Business Administration in 2019 at the Lazaridi School of Business and Economics, which is the business school at Wilfrid Laurier University, another Ashoka Changemaker campus. And you'll hear a little bit more about my journey later on. So for now, I will pass it over to Quentin to introduce himself.
Thank you, Jen. So my name is Quentin Evans. I am the Community Co-Action Coordinator for the Center for Changemaking and Social Innovation at Georgian College. I'm also fortunate to be a part-time faculty at Georgian College, getting to teach a few different kinds of courses. One thing that we talked about was a fun fact that we were going to incorporate, but Jen is too humble to incorporate her fun fact. So I'm going to incorporate it for her and say that Jen Jen is the proud. Okay, well, yeah, you're there, Jen. What is it? What's the fun fact?
Yes, I am a proud tiny house owner and dweller. You can see it sort of in the background here. That's my fun fact.
Because that's basically like the coolest fact in the world when you can be like, this is my tiny house. So my fun fact is actually that I'm friends with someone who owns a tiny house. Like that's definitely a fun fact, but taking it in a different way. So one fun fact that I want to share with you is that I've actually had 6 heart attacks. And I know that when you first hear that, it doesn't seem fun, but it truly has shaped who I've become today. And in fact, just this morning, I was chatting with my manager and we were talking about a quote that I came across that says, "In order to love who you are, you cannot hate the experiences that shaped you." And so I hold much gratitude that my path has led me here today to share in this experience with all of you. And so with that, we want to talk a bit about, so what does today's experience kind of look like? Well, we're going to have our agenda for today is going to be that we're going to set the stage, give you a bit of context and overview of what Georgian and Senko is all about. We want to do a little activity with you, something called Choose Your Own Adventure. Then we're going to take you through the actual history of Senko's journey. I want to also connect a little bit into the classroom today and offer you some takeaways of how we've integrated some of Senko's digital assets into the classroom, into various assignments and learning for our students. We're going to really wrap up with this concept of finding your champion today. And then at the very end, we'll do a little debrief wrap up, any questions and answers. And so really encourage you, if you do have questions as we go along, drop them in the chat. Jen and I will circle back at the end to make sure that we actually answer any of the questions that are coming up, or at least address them as best we can. And so with that, I'll pass the torch back to Jenna to set the stage and offer a little bit more context.
Awesome, thanks. And feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're coming from as well. So what is Senko and what is our relationship to the college? So like I said, Senko stands for the Social Enterprise Network of Central Ontario. It's an initiative of the Centre for Changemaking and Social Innovation at Georgian College. And here's just a brief review of the different acronyms that we use. At Georgian, we use acronyms for just about everything, which I know can be a bit of a barrier. So I will try my best to use the full titles, other than probably Senko. So at the Center for Changemaking and Social Innovation, we use something called Changemaker Pathways. These pathways are a tool for students to self-locate themselves and provide a framework for them to design their change-making journey. And the purpose of these pathways is to show students that there is not one way to be a change maker, but that there are many, and that they can be a change maker regardless of what program they're taking or what career they are pursuing. So if a student is interested in exploring social enterprise, or if they identify as a social entrepreneur, they would be connected with the Senko programming. So Senko is all about building capacity for social enterprise, both within the college and in the surrounding communities, which are mostly rural communities. And the rural component has been a really important part of our work because the needs of rural areas are obviously very different than urban areas. So we work with social enterprises, budding social entrepreneurs, organizations, intermediaries, and community leaders to support innovative economic approaches to strengthen our communities. Our goal is to be the bridge to new knowledge, resources, and supporting business practices to achieve financial growth and sustainability through social enterprise. And I'm just seeing Quentin put our website link in the chat there, so feel free to check that out if you want to learn more about what we do and the different programming that we offer.
Fantastic.
All right, so I'm now going to pass it back over to Quentin for our activity.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jen. So to start this, we actually want to introduce something called the hero's journey. Now, the hero's journey was coined by Joseph Campbell in 1949. It might be something you've heard of. And it's really from his famous book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Well, the hero's journey, or the monomyth, as it's actually called, is just a common pattern of that shows up in epic stories where a hero goes on an adventure, they triumph over adversity, and then they come home a transformed individual. And for Campbell, there was actually 17 stages that he identified throughout the journey. But for today, we've distilled those down into just about 5 major segments. You can see those on the screen right now. This is the call to adventure, the challenges that wound up being encountered, the revelation, the transformation, and the return back. And the reason we share this with you today is because we'd like to take you on a bit of an adventure, and in fact, a choose your own adventure. So just by a quick show of hands, who's familiar with these books? Of course, we're kidding. We cannot see your hands. So we're just going to trust that most of you put it up. If you've never heard of Choose Your Own Adventure books, basically they allow the reader to choose the pathway that they're going to go throughout the adventure. And so that's what we wanted to try out with you today. For each point or decision in our story, there's actually going to be a poll, fingers crossed, that is available that you can actually vote to say which path should we continue on for this particular story. And so with that, we'll see if we can begin our actual hero's journey, our story of Senko. Okay, so our story begins with our hero Senko being called to the adventure of building social enterprise capacity in the rural communities of central Ontario. Senko has wandered out to the wild and unknown terrain of the central Ontario social enterprise ecosystem and is overwhelmed at where to even begin. There are gaps everywhere and no one seems to be communicating with each other. Our hero emerges as the first choice Senko must make becomes apparent. Should Senko, and this is where we could vote in the poll if they indeed have shown up, start identifying and cataloging all the different current gaps? Or should Senko start building the connections and networks between all the different actors? Let's quickly see if the polls are coming in. Jen, are you seeing any results from our poll?
I am not. I do see them there, but you're right, I don't see results.
Me neither. Except for the one I voted for. I see my result. So we'll give this another second just in case this is still showing up.
And it's the third poll is the first question. Perfect. At least on my screen, it's the bottom one there.
That's tough. We don't know exactly what everyone's screen is actually looking like.
Oh, wait. Now I can see. Okay. So we have 75% say start identifying and cataloging the current gaps.
Okay.
So we will go with that. Oops. There we go.
Ah, beautiful. Great job, everyone, making your first very difficult decision. Apparently it was more difficult for Jen and I on the back end than it was on the front end, but nonetheless, thank you for sharing that. Okay, back to our story. So Senko realized that without knowing more about the terrain, there would be too many unforeseen pitfalls and potential danger to complete this quest. As Senko began analyzing and compiling all of the available data for Central Ontario, an eerie feeling emerged that seemed to be beckoning Senko to create a defined pathway that everyone could follow. As Senko created the pathway, it became more and more evident that in fact two pathways, running parallel and supporting each other, would be critical to achieving the goal. Senko realized the need for a catalyst stream for individuals as well as a connector stream for communities. Where should Senko explore? The catalyst stream or the connector stream? You can vote in the polls.
I think it does take a minute because I was still getting some updated results from the first one. So
from before. Yeah, maybe that's it. We just need to be a little patient. I mean, stories, they take time to unfold. They need their pauses in them. This is sort of our perfect moment. And it's a tough call. Do you go catalyst or connector? Not an easy decision.
So right now we are at 38% say the catalyst stream and 63% say the connector stream. That's where we're at now. So maybe we'll give it another minute, see if it changes.
Okay. Feels a bit like we're on like The Voice. You can vote in. Vote in where you want to go.
So we're at 50-50 right now.
Oh, 50-50. I think that means the next vote is the deciding vote. We can get
Yeah.
one more vote. We'll decide whether to go catalyst or connector. Anything changing?
Nope.
All right, it's a deadlock. This means the default always goes to Jenna Stevanato. Jenna,
Oh
where do we
no.
go?
Okay, we're gonna do the connector stream.
The connector stream, an excellent choice. As Senko was fostering the connector stream, there was an unmistakable need emerging from everyone involved. We need more opportunities and partnerships to create the kind of social impact we're seeking, was the halcyon call. As Senko began to foster these opportunities and relationships, an inspiration to collectively share these with everyone at the same time materialized. And so we will go to the social impact gathering. Senko realized that the only way of sharing all these emerging tools, resources, opportunities, and partnerships was to bring everyone under the same roof at the same time. And so Senko created the Social Impact Gathering for Central Ontario, a one-day free event that would showcase the latest tools, resources, opportunities, while fostering new relationships across the land. But, dun dun dun, plot twist, a pandemic. Just as the people in the sector were gaining steam and creating a new landscape for the region, a pestilence, so great and so far, took over the land. How can we possibly continue to work when we cannot gather together anymore, lamented Senko. The fear and division returned as the horde fractured and began yelling two different commands. The first, you need to empower the people to rise above this. The second, you need to empower the organizations in order to rise above this. What should Senko do? And so your last vote, does Senko choose to empower the people, or does Senko choose to empower the organizations?
As of right now, we're at 83% say empower the people and 17 says organizations.
I feel like it's a landslide.
I think so too.
I guess we're coming to empower the people.
Right.
And so Senko began creating digital assets for individuals to access. Audio documentaries, licensing a Canadian social enterprise feature-length film, pardon me, creating podcasts and new virtual eye placements for students. While Senko had learned that empowering individuals was indeed key to building a sustainable and innovative social enterprise ecosystem in Central Ontario, the ultimate solution always seemed to lie in the ability to bring both streams back together. Where can we possibly find digital space that equally values the growth of individuals and the growth of organizations, bemoaned Senko? Is there a space where collective capacity is prioritized so that we can thrive now and in the future? And with that seemingly impossible question lingering, the universe answered Senko. The universe said to Senko, there is one place, one institution that since inception has tried to build and mobilize the knowledge, skills, and capacity of both individuals and organizations throughout the local community. Go to the schools, the institutes of higher learning, especially Ashoka U Changemaker campuses, and you will find a virtual ocean where both of your streams can merge. The end. What a great story. Thank you for playing along, everyone, and choosing your little choose your own adventure of what Senko had to go through. So obviously we wanted to have a little interactivity. We want to have a little fun, and we really wanted to focus a little bit on some of the challenges that any hero's journey kind of goes through, and having to make some of those difficult choices along the way. But with that, we want to actually look at how did Senko's journey really unfold? How did this actually unfold? And so with that, I'll pass it back to Jen to share that little story.
Awesome, thanks. I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that, but I will try. So I first wanted to take a moment to talk about a theory of change. Some of you may already be familiar with this, but I just want to provide a bit of context around where Senko's journey began. And I really liked the simplicity of this definition, that a theory of change is a tool to help you describe the need you are trying to address, the changes you want to make, so your outcomes, and what you plan to do, so your activities. So back in 2017, the former program manager of Senko, Ellie Green, she went through the process of creating this comprehensive theory of change. And this theory of change has continued to guide our decision making and our priorities and our ability to fill gaps in our community. So these are a few excerpts from our theory. I'll put the link in the chat to the full version, so you can dive deeper if you want to. I'm just going to do that really quick. Oh, you're on it. Thank you. Okay. All right, so Senko's goal is to build a flourishing regional social enterprise ecosystem in Central Ontario, an area that is primarily rural. Our vision is sustainable, community-based social and economic development through social enterprise across the region. And Senko's vision aligns with both the college-wide strategies as well as the Ashoka Action Plan. So Senko is a regional leader, a part of a larger provincial and national ecosystem of intermediaries pursuing similar work across the country. So this is where it all began, our call to adventure. Georgian College's Ashoka Action Plan included a commitment to supporting social enterprise development across Central Ontario. So we identified the gaps in our regional social enterprise sector and designed the program around filling those gaps. So we established two unique streams of programming. The first was the Catalyst stream, focusing on supports for individuals and organizations. The needs identified for this stream were social enterprise awareness, capacity, and funding. And again, keeping in mind the rural context of those needs. The outcome we are aiming to achieve is social enterprise development. And the way we decided to achieve that was through creating an online platform, hosting monthly social enterprise 101 sessions, digital storytelling through both audio and video, a small grant program, and a mentorship program. The second stream, the connector stream, focused on support for communities. And the needs identified for communities were social enterprise presence, capacity to support social enterprises, awareness, buy-in, local perspectives, and collaboration across regions. The desired outcome for this is sector development and network collaboration. And to do this, we established 63 partnerships across Central Ontario. Like I mentioned, Georgian has 7 campuses across the region. So we established a social enterprise sector development group, or a SEDGE, in each community. And I'm realizing now that that is one more acronym. So this is a map of these SEDGEs. And each group includes a mix of stakeholders supporting economic development and entrepreneurship. So we have representation from small business centers, municipalities, economic development offices, nonprofit and for-profit community champions, as well as leading social enterprises. So we created all of these assets and programs, but we had a limited budget to utilize and scale those assets. We were able to overcome these barriers by securing funding and establishing external partnerships. Senko was able to secure over $1 million in funding to support program development and flow-through funding to social enterprises through various funders. We established provincial and national partnerships. So Social Enterprise Institute and Common Good Solutions are both based in Halifax. Bi Social Canada is based out of the West Coast in Vancouver. Interweave is a national coaching platform, and then we're also partnered with Community Foundations of Canada and more. And these partnerships allowed us to further build our network and access that additional support that we needed. And then came the revelation. We engaged the community with our existing assets and supports and noticed intersections of the two streams. So we had our Catalyst stream designed to support individuals and organizations, and the Connector stream to support communities. Our aha moment happened when we saw the interconnections with the communities, the individuals, and the organizations. So each social enterprise sector development group actually participated in a Social Enterprise 101 session. Many of the social enterprises who are SEDGE members were featured in our video series as well as our audio documentary, and a lot of them were awarded funding from our small grant program. So all of these assets became intersectional and really drove momentum for both streams, which led us to hosting the Social Impact Gathering in June of 2019. So like Quentin said, the Social Impact Gathering was a full day community event that showcased tools, resources, and opportunities available to help build the social enterprise sector across the country. It was hosted in Barrie, Ontario, and over 200 people attended. And the real excitement came from the connections that were made because of our communities coming together. From the event, a community of practice was formed within Georgian College to explore social procurement within the institution. When another working group was formed to pool knowledge and resources and bring their visions for the sector together. So this event was a really critical step in developing a regional social enterprise sector, as it allowed for that cross-stream engagement. And now we enter the transformation stage of our journey. SENCO engaged students with community organizations and adapted the existing assets and supports specifically for the student learning experience. So we developed our assets in a way that supported these individuals, organizations, and communities, and then we brought them back into the classroom. So these are some of the different types of engagements that we offered specifically for students and classes at Georgian College. And I just want to pick a few to highlight that were a really important part of this transformation stage. The Social Shift is a documentary that follows this group of young people across Canada as they explore what social enterprise looks like across the country. Georgian purchased a license to screen this film within the college. So before COVID, we hosted screenings in class, and now we offer virtual screenings. And we started doing these screenings in the fall of 2018. And since then, over 1,600 students have seen it, which is really amazing because we found that this is a tool that really gets students excited about social enterprise. And it really inspires them to consider social enterprise as a part of their change-making journey. And also last summer, we hosted a drive-in screening of the film, which was a really fun way to continue that engagement in a COVID-friendly way. The second engagement is our audiovisual workshop. So like I mentioned, SENCO created this two-part audio documentary that focuses on rural social enterprise, and it looks at how social enterprise is being put into practice to combat a few specific social and environmental problems. And this audio documentary is available to listen to on any platform, but we really wanted to use the content in a more meaningful way and use it to connect with the students. So we essentially created 3 different formats of an audiovisual workshop using the content from the audio documentary. And we found that these workshops allowed students to make very direct connections to their own communities and dive deeper into the social issues that they are most passionate about. And it really created this space for them to ask questions and have discussions and really thoughtfully considered in making a positive change. And the last engagement I wanted to touch on is Changemaker in Residency Week, which is hosted by Georgian Center for Changemaking and Social Innovation. And it's essentially a week for students, staff, faculty, and community members to participate in all of the center's Changemaker programming. And this has been a really amazing platform for students to engage with SENCO resources in a virtual space. And now we come full circle to the return. So now students are bringing their experiences and skills back into the community and are contributing to the development of the social enterprise sector. I want to share a quick story that I think perfectly showcases how we are seeing this happen. So there's a local affordable housing nonprofit here in Barrie called Redwood Park Communities, and they had identified a few different needs within their organization that were really preventing them from growing in the way that they wanted to. So 3 groups of Georgian students worked with Redwood on capstone projects to fill some of these gaps and allow Redwood to focus on what they do best, which is housing people and providing supports. So 2 students from the Business Management and Leadership program provided recommendations for Redwood's online presence and website, as well as which volunteer platform they should leverage. And another group of postgrad human resources students created a comprehensive human resources package, or they called it HR in a box. And that included onboarding processes, draft policies, job descriptions, and that filled a major gap for Redwood. And then an interior design class, they created floor plans and design plans for Redwood's new furniture bank that they were developing. And actually now 2 of the human resource students are employed at local social enterprises, and they're continuing to fill that HR gap in the social enterprise sector. And one of the quotes from this article just says, "Students have expertise that's urgently needed in the social sector," which sums it up so well and is, I think, is so true. So that is SENCO's journey. And we are continuing to learn and fail and try again, and just really support our students in the best way possible so that they feel empowered to be a part of this sector and to be change makers in their own way. So I'm going to pass it back over to Quentin for some tools and resources.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Really love hearing that story of SENCO and specifically some of the outcomes. And we could have spent probably an hour and 15 minutes talking about the huge variety of ways that students get to interact and are starting to help become part of the solution to building the capacity in the region and the sustainable capacity in the region. What I specifically wanted to share with you from the tools and resources standpoint is really complementing some of the examples that Jen has already shared. But really looking at from our perspective, what are some maybe direct takeaways in terms of something that you could potentially use in your classroom or at your institution, since so much of this field requires sort of customized kind of versions. So one of the courses I'm very fortunate to teach is called an Introduction to Social Entrepreneurship. And again, so we're really looking at top level, just an introduction to the concepts and some of the different pieces. The additional component to that is I typically teach in the human services program. So this could range from social service workers to child and youth care practitioners, early childhood educators. And basically, the vast majority have never heard of the term social enterprise. And if we're going to be honest, they're actually terrified. They're terrified that this is a business course and they went to human services to not do business courses. So there's definitely a little bit of resistance as we go in. And this is where working really closely with Jenna, with Ellie, who was the original builder of SENCO, this enabled us to look at creative ways of how do we soften that introduction while still maintaining some of the learning outcomes. So The actual learning outcomes for the course themselves, there's a doc that's attached to, not attached to the slides, but attached with the slides for this presentation that you should be able to access from Attendify. But of course, if you can't, always you could reach out to us at the end, and happy to share those with you. But really, we just wanted to talk about some of the learning outcomes they range from anywhere from identify common social issues in today's local and global communities, to explore how social entrepreneurship and social enterprise offer solutions to complex local and global social issues, to exploring innovative social entrepreneurial strategies and solutions that may successfully ensure social and economic value to the community. And so with this introduction, we really try to get students inspired by the incredible work that's actually taking place, often that they may have heard of, but that they don't necessarily make the direct connection to it being around social enterprise and that understanding. So one example is that's being shared in here is one of the first assignments. It's usually done really, really early in the semester. And the goal is we want the students to watch the social shift, because exactly as Jen said, it tends to be something that really resonates well, especially with millennials. Watch the audio docs, listen to the audio docs, and watch the Social Enterprise 101. And these have all been transformed into these digital assets, since I can't actually get Jenna to come to the classroom, the physical classroom anymore, and deliver the Social Enterprise 101. We've been able to leverage some of those digital assets so that students can still get them. And then from that, we actually ask them a couple of reflection questions. So again, early in the semester, they haven't learned much about this yet. We're trying to get them to reflect on some top level themes, like, should social enterprise have a standard definition? Should there be a standard definition that everyone agrees upon for social enterprise? Because that's an area where there's still a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty. And then also, how can you potentially see social enterprise intersecting with your program? So it gives students this really great opportunity off the hop to say, listen, I don't know anything about this. This is my very first blush interaction with it. Here's some really great examples from across Canada. Here's some great examples from Central Ontario. They're touching on some themes that are really important to students. How do you see this potentially connecting without knowing everything around it? And so typically we tend to get a lot of really excited and inspired responses and reflections around doing that really early in the semester. Midway through the semester, we actually give a quiz, and it's a take-home quiz that students can do over the course of a week. This is where they get the chance to actually explore various social enterprises that either we've explored in the course in the first half, or potentially that we haven't actually touched on, but maybe through their own research, they're starting to discover, this is a social issue I'm really passionate about. Who's doing work around this? And sort of what is their format? Are they a charity? Are they a nonprofit? Would they actually be a social enterprise? Are they interested? And so a lot of the students will actually choose one of the social enterprises, or three in this case, that they've seen throughout the Senko assets. So it gives them something to ground and come back to and say, I didn't realize this existed in my community, but I've wanted to learn more about it because I'm really passionate about the issue that they're actually inspired by. And so those are just a couple of ways of getting directly into the classroom. And you can see the breakdown in terms of what we're looking for in the assignment to demonstrate a little bit of learning, as well as some critical thinking that goes along with it. But the entire goal of both Senko, in the sense of building capacity, and in the classroom too for social entrepreneurship, is not necessarily having everyone become a social entrepreneur. It's really about how do we build the capacity of social enterprise. And so for students, some will be a social entrepreneur, but the vast majority won't. But they could support social entrepreneurship. And more importantly, maybe even become champions for social enterprise. And that's really what our goal is how do we find and then empower these different champions who eventually are going to help build the social enterprise ecosystem in a sustainable way in our rural Central Ontario kind of region. How do we make sure that we don't have that talent loss to various other areas, that we're actually creating some of these synergies? And Jen mentioned a few different ways that our community organizations or social enterprises are connecting directly into classrooms or into different projects as well. And so the importance of that champion, of it being able to identify and then empower, is something that we sort of think of as a little bit of the secret sauce in terms of making this sustainable. And today we're actually really fortunate because we happen to have who Georgian thinks is our personal champion sitting here right with us today on this call. And that's Jenna. And so really want to share Jenna, we really want to give Jenna the chance to share a little bit of her backstory of how it unfolded and how it kind of ties into the importance of being able to identify, empower, and find those champions for yourself. So I'll pass it back to Jen.
Awesome, thanks. So I'm just going to share a little bit more about my journey because I still consider myself to be a recent graduate. And I hope that other students and recent grads can be encouraged by my story and know that their contributions are incredibly valuable and that there is important work to be done here as a student or a young person. And we do see this as a tool because students are amazing resources and can be those champions within institutions, like Quentin said. So I started my journey as a business student in 2015 at Wilfrid Laurier University. And in my second year, I was introduced to social entrepreneurship. And that's when it really clicked for me that I could participate in the business sector, but not have to conform to the traditionally exploitative practices of the sector and that profit-driven mindset. So I had 3 co-op placement opportunities throughout my studies. And I wanted to work in the social enterprise sector. But as a business student, that option didn't exist. So for my first co-op, I sought out a construction social enterprise in Barrie. And they actually didn't identify as a social enterprise at that time. But while working there, I learned about the Center for Changemaking and Social Innovation at Georgian College. I cold emailed the director, Susie Addison Tour, to see if they would hire me for my next co-op. And Susie basically said, we will make a place for you because we want you here. And that was a really cool moment for me. And at that time, Ellie Green was the program manager of Senco, and she invited me to attend a national partners meeting in Toronto, which is not a place where students typically had a seat at the table. And at that meeting, Ellie introduced me to the executive director of BiSocial Canada in Vancouver, and they focus on social procurement. And I got a similar response when I reached out about doing my third and final co-op with them. They were just excited to have a student interested in this work, and they were willing to create a position for me. So I went out to Vancouver for 4 months. I learned a ton. And then I came back to Ontario to finish my studies. And when I graduated in 2019, Georgian College brought me back as project assistant for Senco. And now it's been about 2 years. I'm presenting at the Ashoka U Exchange, which is crazy, but I was given a seat at the table and I was given that chance to learn and build connections and develop really strong relationships with the other amazing people in this sector. And that's why I think it's sort of become my personal mission to create a space within educational institutions for students to become champions of social impact work and create opportunities for them to learn and engage meaningfully. So there's been many other touch points in my journey. So I hosted Senco's audio documentary while I was still in school. I joined my local social enterprise sector development group. And I led a social enterprise panel discussion for other co-op students at Laurier. So I just think that students are in such a unique position with their desire to learn, because for me, that desire to learn made me just excited to take opportunities, even if I had no idea what I was doing. So I guess I just want to challenge each of you to find that champion. So thank you for listening to my story. I will pass it back over to Quentin to wrap up.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Yes, this is the reality. And so this is actually our little bit of homework for you as well, is to start thinking and looking in your ecosystem and saying, who's your champion? Who's about to launch their own hero's journey? Who's just getting that call to adventure? And they're going to become the protagonist for the change that you or that your institution is actually trying to create. who will present alongside you when Ashoka Exchange 2025? Having those thoughts, identifying those individuals, and especially in a burgeoning sector like social enterprises, certainly in our region, that there's so many students who have strong passion. This concept that I learned at Ashoka years ago, which was about graduate with a mission, not just a major. And that's something that really, really resonates. So how do we find and cultivate the Jenna Stevanatos of the world who are seeking these things out, but maybe the pathways aren't fully cleared yet? And so with the work that Senko has been doing, with the work that Georgian College trying to connect it back into the classroom to expose some of our students to these opportunities, that's what we're hoping to be able to do, is to keep unearthing this talent who needs to have a voice in this sector, especially to become sustainable in the future as well. So with that, we'd like to say thank you for sharing our experience with us today. We're actually probably a little bit ahead of time, which is sort of a blessing too. But with that, we know we dumped a lot of information today in terms of the history of Senko, in terms of some of the connections to the classroom at Georgian College, talked about a few things, even like Changemaker Residency Week. So we want to open up the floor to anyone. If you had some questions, we're looking for maybe a little bit more clarity or anything like that, we'd love to try and address it as best we can. And thank you once again for joining us today. I know too from other sessions, sometimes there's a delay. I learned that one too. So we'll just wait in case anybody wants to drop a question, and I'll go back as well and look through, make sure we didn't miss anything. As you're maybe taking time to try and find some a question or two, or maybe that there's a bit of a delay in the Q&A coming back, definitely want to draw your attention a little bit to the last slide, in the sense of, if you would like to connect with either Jenna or I at any time to get a little bit more clarity or information, or just to connect in general, we'd love it. So our emails are directly there. They're obviously in the deck as well that's attached to this session. And then some of the social media, if you're interested to check out some of the other amazing work that's happening with Senko, really encourage you to do that as well. And I can see we do have a question from Ms. Ellie Green. That says, if you could both start a social enterprise today, what would it be? And with that, I'll throw it to Jen.
Oh, no, that's tough. I feel like I've had so many ideas here and there, but I think my own personal passion is working with people with intellectual disabilities. So I would love to do something employment or different training opportunities and programming. I don't know what that would look like as a business model, or like what the business itself would be, but I'd say that's my personal passion. What about you, Q?
What Jen said. No, because yeah, it is. It's a really tough question, especially being fortunate enough to play in the field. You get exposed to like so many incredible ideas and so many groups of individuals that you're like, we could make solid impact here if we approach this holistically, or if we look for more innovative solutions. If I was going to answer this really authentically, I probably would need a little bit more time. I don't have that answer canned off the top of my head, but I will say that I'm currently working with some criminal justice students as they work through an innovation project. And it's not specific to social enterprise, but it is around social innovation. And they've really inspired me around revisiting some of my original thoughts about the criminal justice system, and specifically around reintegration for offenders. And just really believing that as we look ahead and as we envision what 10 years down the road looks like, there are multiple opportunities to potentially support individuals to re-enter workforce, re-enter society, especially in the digital realm. And I think it's something that maybe we aren't doing right now in sort of our area. There are some great programs for offenders who are reintegrating, and often they're trades-based, which is really fantastic. We actually do need more skilled labor in that way. But I think there's also a space for computer skills, computer programming, and some of the more technologically advanced stuff that's going to be really, really prevalent in the next, well, it's prevalent now, obviously, as we all meet virtually, but prevalent even more so. So if I really had to think off the top of my head, what would I start today? It would probably be focused around supporting offenders reintegrating, around building skills and capacities for 21st and 22nd century skills. Great question. Do see another one in here, Jen. Thanks, Joanne. A little thank you. What are some challenges that students might face in rural region considering a social enterprise pathway? Love that question, Joanne. For me, anyways, what we're seeing in and why Senko has been such a critical element for Central Ontario is that there was basically there was no pathway at the end. They were maybe really, really excited to work in the field, but it meant going to a city. It meant going to our closest sort of city here is Toronto, and it meant traveling and taking their talents and insights typically away. So as the region gets built more and more, and the awareness of the incredible work that's happening right at home, we call home in our region, I think some of the pathways are beginning to become clearer, more connected, and open up. And part of that also involves bringing social enterprises into the college curriculum, if you will. So whether that's through co-ops, whether that's field placements, and exposing students to recognize that there's more than just the traditional businesses that have always been the partners, or the traditional charities that have always been the partners. So that would be my top thought. Jen, do you have anything you want to add on that?
Honestly, that would be my main thing as well. And I mean, I think there's still a lot of awareness around social enterprise, and just I think there are a lot of organizations and businesses that might be operating as a social enterprise, but might not know what social enterprise is, that what they are doing is a social enterprise model. So I think that plays into it as well, as just that language that we use might not necessarily translate. And so there's some missed opportunities even. So that's something that we are always working on, is how do we make the language accessible so that we can come together as a community, and someone can say, hey, this is exactly what I'm doing, and I am making an impact in the business and in what I'm doing with my business. So yeah, I'd say that's another piece as well that plays into it.
Awesome. Totally agree with that, Jen. That's an important piece to incorporate. I see Jose has a question, really great question, actually. How high are the micro grants in the micro grant program?
The grant program was tied specifically to provincial funding that we had. So when that funding ended, the grant program also ended, but they were just very small seed funding. I don't know specifically the amount that it would go up to, but it was very, like small entry level type funding for organizations that were in that beginning stage of starting their social enterprise.
Yeah, I think a little bit of my knowledge around this too, and Jen, you can correct me if I misspeak on any of this stuff around Senko, but the concept which I love was like there was a traction grant and an accelerator grant at one point, and I really love that Senko chose to sort of break those out. That for a lot of organizations, just getting that traction, there's a real need there, and so being able to be in that little bucket of funds. But then that accelerator grant too. So for maybe social enterprises who are a little more established, or some of those who use the traction grant to become more established, and that accelerator grant, if again, could be wrong, but from my understanding, typically had a little bit more range in terms of funds that could be used, because not necessarily everyone would get to the accelerator phase in that funding stream. But yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong on that, Jen. I'm kind of going off of memories.
Yeah, and Ellie, who I mentioned, pretty much started Senko and was the original program manager. She put a link in there to information about this traction grant program, so you can learn more there as well. Thank you, Ellie.
We can see some nice comment from Ashley as well. Awesome sauce. Love that. Like anytime awesome sauce gets tossed in there. But really great point in there too about what happens, when that mentorship and opportunity is there. And I know I speak for both Jen and myself when we say, like, some of the students and their journeys that we've watched actually unfold, and some of the pathways they've taken are so inspiring, and really creating that increase in accessibility is another huge area too, that Ashley's talking about in the comment there, that I think we're just starting to scratch the surface effectively on. So great comment. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I've attended a lot of sessions this week specifically around accessibility and anti-racism in the institution, and I'm honestly so excited to take all of that knowledge and now adapt some of those practices. And yeah.
Fantastic. Ah, lovely. Just catching up on a couple of comments here. A few thank yous,
Mm.
which is always appreciated. Jen and I were laughing before we started. We're like, we're nervous. What do we do? But this was a lot of fun. So we
Yeah.
really appreciate you sharing in this with us and interacting and giving your feedback and thoughts. And we, yeah, definitely hope it held some value in whether directly or indirectly moving forward for you.
Yeah. And hopefully it was a little bit of fun for you guys as well.
Yeah,
Thank you, Shaylin.
cool. Well, I know we have the space, but if there aren't any other questions, I'm just sort of seeing the group here, and I think we've had many of the people sort of engage. We'll give it another minute or two. If you do have a question, please feel free to drop it in. But also take a look at the screen, grab our emails if it's something that you want to follow up later on. And we are both big believers in the gift of time. And so if we happen to finish a few minutes early, and it gives you the gift of time to have a stretch, have a walk, grab a tea before the next amazing Ashoka session, then yeah, both Jen and I think are totally great with that as well.
Maybe stop. I'll stop sharing my screen, but we'll put in our emails in the chat so that they're still there.
Great thought. Actually, I just realized too, maybe our emails are connected to our profiles, but
Oh yeah,
either
they
way,
probably are.
easy access. Fabulous. Awesome. Yes, thank you, Joanne, and great to hear, Jose, that you were able to access the attached slides and curriculum. Jose just saying from Brazil, how cool is that? First of all, that we're able to connect, and you're able to join us today. Uh, here a very, I think, initial project. Um, Jose, if you have the space, feel free to type a bit more in the chat that you can let us know about that project. And share one personal anecdote. I had the good fortune a couple of years ago of going on a trip to Guatemala through Georgian College to explore um, a particular region there and look for different kinds of partnerships that could potentially obviously benefit our students in terms of experiences, but also really benefit the communities from the ground up. So not so much coming in from that high end of saying, here's what we're going to do, but starting that conversation earlier so that when our students actually got there, there had already been a shared dialogue. And it was actually amazing to watch in this particular region in Guatemala, the incredible innovation that was consistently taking place and the plethora of social enterprises to the point of, sort of assume at times that, certain countries maybe aren't aware, because even in Canada, we're still growing the sector, even though social enterprises have been around for a long time. And it's really, really cool. So for anyone who is really excited about social enterprise, really encourage you to look outside your walls too, and to spots like Brazil, to Guatemala, to different countries, and see some of the incredible work that's actually taking place there. Awesome, Jose. Thank you. Well, what do you think, Jen?
Yeah. Again, if anyone has any questions later on that you think of, again, just feel free to reach out directly and we can connect and answer any of those questions. But I'm not seeing anything else on my end.
No, same here. And this would be the first time in history you can ask any of my students that I didn't talk over the time I was allotted. So this is a win. Like I want to celebrate this win right now.
Okay.
We'll take those 3 minutes. We'll take that little bit of time. I think there's probably only 12 minutes left in this session, anyways. So a little bit of extra time. Our genuine thanks for joining us today, for giving us the space to share a little bit of our individual journeys as well as the journey of Georgian College and Senko. So thank you very much. And
Thank you.
quick little shout out to say thank you very much, Jen. I always love working with Jenna. It's the best. So
I would say the same. Yeah, thank you everyone so much for joining.